Howdy ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Oilers. So there's not a lot going on. I keep saying this every week, but it's going to be pretty slow news days for probably another month yet. But there is a few things to talk about, so we'll get to that. But before that, here's a quick message. Hey all, just a quick mention here. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment on the videos you like. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, which helps me. Takes 2 seconds. So thanks in advance. Alrighty, so let's start off with the big one. Right off the bat. All 5 defendants in the Hockey Canada sexual assault trial have been found not guilty. Now, I'm actually quite happy about this verdict. Or not that I think what they did was smart. It's not my cup of tea, and they were idiots, but they were like under 18 kids at the time. And hormonal kids do really stupid things. And that includes the girl. It's not just those 5. She testified under oath that she consented to this. She went up to that room willingly. She knew what she was getting into. There may have been some buyer's remorse, but from what I hear, she wasn't even the one to bring the complaint about him. So I think there was some more people behind the scenes pulling strings, that's the society we live in. Hopefully their hardship will teach future kids coming up. You got to be more careful. You got to be smarter. The days of puck bunnies are over. Society's just not like that anymore. And, you may hear all these stories from the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That's not our society anymore. So you have to be more aware. And it's not fair to the kids, any of the kids, because they're not really educated on this stuff. Like, they don't have the life experience to know this stuff, so. And it might sound like I'm making excuses for them. I'm not. It's just, I understand for whatever reason, and it's not just kids. I know a number of adults that still engage in this crap. That's what they're into, and as long as it's not illegal, I don't really give a shit. And from everything I've heard outside of the political influencers trying to turn this into a witch hunt, this was distasteful. And, the parents honestly should have taught the boys and the girl much better. That's really where it comes down to. But yeah, I'm honestly happy that they were found not guilty. Hockey Canada already paid out millions of dollars to her. So, they jumped the gun because that's the society we live in. As soon as there's an accusation, it's full on damage control mode, rather than let it go to court. Let's see what the verdict is and go from there. No. So Hockey Canada assumed the worst. The one part of this story I'm going to be interested in is, now that they're found not guilty, the NHL banned them or suspended all of them. How quickly does the NHL have to reverse that ruling and let them back into the league? Because if they don't, now that they've been found not guilty, that opens up the NHL to a massive lawsuit, especially if no teams pick them up. If no teams pick any of these guys up, that banning suspension has directly impacted their earning potential over their lifetime. And now that they're found not guilty, that makes it the fault of the NHL. So it'll be very interesting to watch how this comes out. I think Carter Hart might end up in Edmonton. We've done reclamation projects before. He's a local boy from this area. We know he's a number one goalie. Like there's no doubt about that. Carter Hart is a legitimate number one goalie in the NHL. So I would not be shocked if he gets picked up by the Oilers on a low entry contract. Bring him in and let him see if he can fit with the group, because, you know, when you bring in a contentious person, it's always hard to guess how that's going to fit in the group. So yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting going forward. I think few of them probably will never get back into the NHL, and those are the ones that are going to sue the NHL. I think Dylan Dubé and Carter Hart will get back into the NHL, but will they get the success that they were, you know, they were up here at a certain level before this all broke. So, you know, like we've seen what happened to Evander Kane with his ex-wife lying all the time. And I'm not saying the girl lied, by the way. I'm just using this as an example, just so we're clear. See, even I have to be careful on how I word things because of modern society. So, you know, we got Evander Kane, and there was a whole bunch of accusations, none proven, at him. And as it turns out, the only accusation that turned out to be true is he was gambling, but he wasn't even gambling on his own team. So he, in effect, wasn't breaking the league rules. But he had a problem with gambling, and he had to get that sorted out. But the rest of the stuff, it all turned out. Yet, I'm sitting at a gaming table last Saturday, and this topic came up about these 5 guys. And wouldn't you know it, 2 of the players at the table, oh, well, Evander Kane, you know, look at this, and he's guilty of this and that. It's like, he's not guilty of any of that. But this is the problem with the modern day society, is their political interest or agenda trumps everything else. Excuse the word. I'm not talking about the orange man, by the way. I'm just saying their political agenda or opinion trumps everything else. They don't care about the facts. They only care about their ideology, you know, and they want those gotchas on these guys. Make no mistake about it. You know, so like I still hear Evander Kane getting badmouthed by these people, but he didn't do anything wrong other than the gambling. Like everything his wife said about him turned out false. You know, no court in the USA is going to give him full custody of his kid and allow him to move that kid into a different country if her complaints held any sort of merit. You know, that just doesn't happen. So that alone tells you that Evander was free and clear, but he'll never be free and clear because a certain demographic out there want him to be guilty, and it's going to be the same for these 5. It doesn't matter that they were found not guilty. A certain demographic out there want them tarred and feathered and ruined for these actions. You know, again, at the gaming table, it's like when this topic came up, I said exactly what I said here. Well, I didn't watch a whole bunch of the trial, but from the news headlines I saw, she admitted it was consensual, and she is not the person that brought up the charges. And instantly it was like, well, she's a victim, so, you know, they should have been found guilty because she's the victim. I'm like, but she didn't view herself as a victim. She said it was consensual. Like, it was distasteful. Like, 5 guys on 1 girl is distasteful. I don't care who it is. And again, I know adults that still do this crap. You know, swingers that I have nothing to do with them, but I know they do this crap. So it's not an unheard of thing, but it's distasteful in my book. But it's not illegal. They were underage. I think she was of age, so she was the adult in the group. I may be wrong on that. Like I said, I didn't follow really close, but they were underage, all of them, because it was the World Juniors. They had not been drafted yet. You need to be 18 to be drafted. So 1 + 1 really does equal 2 sometimes. So yeah, anyway. So they were found not guilty. Now we're going to see how the rest of it plays out. Like I said, I expect the NHL is going to get hit with a pretty massive lawsuit by any of the 5 players that can't get their careers back on track at the level they were when they got suspended or banned. And I have no problem with that because the NHL jumped the gun just like Team Canada jumped the gun paying out. Everybody just takes accusations as guilt nowadays. And again, this is why I say it's on the parents. Parents, you have to teach your kids that the society nowadays, facts take a backseat to accusations and opinions. So you got to, especially if you're in the public eye, like a hockey player, a junior player, a hockey player, a baseball player, a basketball player, a football player, whatever. If you're an athlete or a celebrity of some sort, you have to be on your best behavior at all time. And they weren't. They made a boneheaded mistake and it cost them. But now they've been cleared. So how much is it going to cost the NHL? I can't answer that. We'll see how it plays out. So that's the big story of this week. Not really Oiler related, other than my suspicion that Carter Hart will end up in Edmonton at some point. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe Stan Bowman, like if we had Holland, I think Holland would take the chance on him. I don't know Bowman that well, so maybe Bowman won't take the chance. We'll just have to sit back and see what happens. I do know I've heard 3 goalies named around in the last week. There's the Pietrangelo, I'm saying that name wrong, out of Boston, seems to be the odds-on favorite that they're looking at. Now, his case is he's in the AHL, and he apparently is really good and should have a chance on the NHL team, but Boston doesn't have room for him, and he wants on an NHL team. It's kind of like the Isaiah Howard trade. Howard wanted on the Tampa team, but the Tampa said, no, you're going to stay in the AHL for another year because we don't have room for you right now. And Howard said, no, I'm not signing a contract. Trade me to a team that will give me that opportunity. And that turned out to be the Oilers. So, he's on the team, he's here, and he's going to be given every chance to make the team, which is why, as I said last week, I don't think Savoy's going to stick with us this season. I think he will be the one to go down to the AHL, contrary to the talking heads that seem to think we're going to ice half of our team as rookies. No, you carry 1 or 2 rookies. In my mind, the 2 rookies we're carrying this season, at the start anyway, will be Isaiah Howard and Noah Phillip, because I don't think Phillip will clear waivers, whereas Savoy doesn't need to clear waivers. So it's pretty simple equation. There's another goalie out there. I forget. I just heard it the other day. I want to say Nashville, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's the same situation. It's an AHL goalie with some credibility surrounding him. And, there's talk that we'll trade for him. I don't think he's at the same level as the Boston goalie. And then there's Carter Hart is the third name I've heard. But again, I don't know Stan Bowman. I don't know if he's going to take that chance. I think Holland would have, because we've seen Holland take those chances, like with Evander Kane and Zach Kassian, and we've done the reclamation projects before. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So the next story I got for you is on this day in 2021, and we're talking July 28th, Zach Hyman was signed to a 7-year contract. I didn't realize it was 2021. That means like 4 years have already been 8 on that 7-year contract. So, but I think that was a great signing. That was a fantastic signing. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I have absolutely no problem with Zach Hyman's game. I love him on our team. I love everything he brings to our team. I just hope he can stay healthy. That's my only concern, is him staying healthy. Otherwise, I'm 100% in on the Zach Hyman bandwagon. Rah, rah, rah. So anyway, yeah, it was 2021 on July 28th, we signed Zach Hyman to a 7-year contract. And yeah, it's been awesome. So well done. The next one is Trent Fredricks, impact with the Oilers. Frederick was consistently able to, this is from SidOilersNation.com. Frederick was consistently able to use his size and physicality to disrupt opposition breakouts and force turnovers in the offensive zone with Boston. So although Frederick had some issues with getting pucks out of his own end, his excellent forechecking seemed to outweigh it, as seen by his net above average defensive impacts. So I don't know if that was Frederick's problem or if that was just Boston's lineup and style, because you never know. Like, I don't watch Boston games, so I don't know how he was being used, and for the last 2 years, they haven't really been anything to write home about. So, when you're on a bad team, your stats go down no matter who you are. Look at some of Connor's stats early on in his career. They were good, but they weren't great. Once the team got better, Connor got better. So I'll be watching Fredricks. I am really, really, really hopeful that he can replace Evander Kane, but without the penalty minutes. It's obvious Evander's been targeted by the league, so we had to move him. And I hate that because I loved Evander Kane as a player. And as a person, actually. He was such a class act in Edmonton. So, if Trent Fredricks can replace Evander on the ice and off the ice, that will be a huge bonus, especially since we signed him to a long-term deal, But, yeah, so we're going to see. I love that he forechecks. I love that he's physical. I'm going to hold opinion on his defensive zone play because he wasn't healthy last year, and we weren't great defensively last year anyway. So, in our zone, like, our forwards were not back checking super strong, and so it wasn't just him. So I'm going to hold off opinion on his defensive, and I'm going to watch the games and see how he does this year. And I'm crossing fingers that he can be everything Evander Kane was, or even more. If he can fill all those slots and be a little bit better, oh my God, that's just a home run right out of the gate for Bowman. It really is. So, yeah, crossing fingers, but that was the scouting report coming out of Boston, and we'll just have to see how it plays, because Edmonton's a much different team than the Boston Bruins are. So here was an interesting conversation going on I heard on the radio the other day. What is your biggest hot take going into the 2025-26 Edmonton Oilers season? And most of the stuff I heard was goaltending and blah, 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 like that. And I'm sure everybody has a hot take, but my hot take is not going to surprise anyone that's watched these videos for the last few weeks. My hot take is Evan Bouchard is not going to step up as a number one defenseman. His offense is going to be there. Yeah, he's a good offensive. I'd even go so far as say he's an elite offensive defenseman. But he sucks in our defensive zone. And my hot take is no matter how much he talks about improving his defense, I don't think his defense is going to improve. I just don't see it. I don't see him taking the body to clear out the front of the net. I don't see him blocking shots. And let me be clear, I don't want him blocking shots. Like, his forte is offense. And if he's blocking shots, he can get injured in the worst areas. But if you're not willing to block the shots, you shouldn't be on the penalty kill. This is my whole thing. Is like, I don't want to see Bouchard on the penalty kill because he's not willing to do what we need the penalty killers to do. And again, I don't want him doing that. Like, I don't want him blocking shots. And honestly, I don't even want him getting super physical. His game is his big shot, his offense. He's a one-dimensional offensive defenseman, and that's honestly what I want him to focus on. I want the coaches to use him as a one-dimensional offensive defenseman. So that's my hot take. I don't think that surprises anyone, but yeah, so we'll see. We shall see what Evan can bring to the table this year. Now, what's your hot take? Leave it in the comments. Tell me, what's your hot take of the season? Is it goaltending? Is it coaching? Is it Bouchard? Is it Nurse? Is it, you tell me what your hot take is for this upcoming season. All right, Stauffer. Oilers could have extensions done for McDavid, Wallman, Ekholm, Podkolzin, and Knobloch within a month. Those waiting for news surrounding the Edmonton Oilers could be in for an eventful next calendar month. While the team has accomplished their off-season, making a slew of moves that include signing Andrew Mangiapane and Curtis Lazar, trading for Isaiah Howard, and clearing out cap space, they're reportedly ready to take care of some of the important business items. And according to Bob Stauffer, the team could have extensions done for a number of players in Connor McDavid, Jake Wallman, Matthias Ekholm, and Vasily Podkolzin, as well as head coach Chris Knobloch. Let's say by August the 28th, which is a Thursday, so that would be 1 month minus a day from when I'm filming this. I could foresee a scenario where extensions are done on Podkolzin, Wallman, Ekholm, and McDavid, he said on Monday's edition of Oilers Now. So I'm not moving off it. Frank Saravelli and myself both said 100% that Connor would re-sign all along. Nothing was happening before Leon's wedding. I could see some traction occurring after that. Oh, and a potential extension for Chris Knobloch as well. Those ones I would say that Brent Kulak will probably have a decision to make. Stauffer's comments mark the first time there's been talk of McDavid's impending extension since around the end of the playoffs, and the first time for all the other players. So they just go into what these guys have done, so I'm going to skip the rest of that. So, that's actually big news. I've said for all along, Connor McDavid is re-signing in Edmonton. Now, I'm not convinced it'll be an 8-year contract. I think it might be 4 years, but it'll definitely be between 4 and 8. But I'm kind of leaning towards 4 years rather than 8. And at the end of those 4 years, if we haven't won the cup, I think Connor walks to a new team. But I think he's re-signing for the next 4 years and play out the window for the Oilers. The reason I'm putting credibility, and I'm not a Bob Stauffer fan. If you've watched my other videos, I dismiss him a lot. I don't like how he tries to make everything about himself. I don't like how biased he is when he's commentating or doing color. But the one thing you can say about Bob Stauffer is he is an Edmonton Oiler insider. He has contacts in the team that normal media don't have. So when he comes out and says something, you can usually bet the team is leaning that way, or the story is leaning that way. So it's not 100% guaranteed, obviously. Something can happen. Something can always happen. But it sounds like if Stauffer's willing to go on the limb and say 100% those contracts are getting done, I think those contracts are getting done. And until somebody says, and the greatest part about that is the Toronto media, boom, their minds are going to frickin' explode, because all we've seen for the last 2 months is Connor McDavid is leaving the Oilers. He's signing with Toronto. He's signing with Colorado. He's signing with Florida. Yeah. So hopefully this is true, and hopefully I follow a site called Leafs Suck, and the minute Connor signs with the Oilers, that site is going to blow up mocking the Leafs media. And I am going to have so much fun sharing those memes and stories and jokes. And yeah, all right. So that's really about all the news there's been for this season, or for this week, I should say. that's about all I've come across. So to finish off this video, I'm going to do what I did last week, and I'm going to talk about my projected second line forwards and second pairing defensemen. So obviously second line center is Leon Draisaitl. What can you say about Leon Draisaitl? He's the second best player in the league, in my opinion. I don't care. I don't care what the Toronto media says. Leon Draisaitl is the second best player in the league, and we are so fortunate to have him. We really are. He brings different aspects than Connor brings. So if we can get him the proper line mates, we're going to have two top lines that are different from each other. So it's not so easy for opponents to shut down. Leon is probably, I'm going to go on a limb and say Leon's the best passer in the league. Better than Connor. Now, and Connor's elite. Make no mistake about it. But I think Leon is the better passer, which is ironic because it's Leon scoring the goals. He's the prolific scorer. But you watch his passes, and he's phenomenal as a passer. I wish he would slow down on the blind pass, because that seems to be where he gets in trouble. He does these blind passes, and they seem to be getting picked off a lot last year. But yeah, when he knows where he's putting that puck and he's got a sliver of room to put it, he gets it there. He is, like I said, he's the best passer in the league, in my opinion, bar none. He's physical. He grinds. He's an amazing goal scorer, obviously. He's a leader in the room. Like, he's everything you want one of your star players to be. And people get on him about being grumpy. I have no problem with him being grumpy. It tells me he cares. I have more problem with people having a bad game and go, oh, well, it's just a game. Those people drive me absolutely freaking crazy. They really do. This is your job. This is your profession. You shouldn't be waving off a bad game or dismissing it. It should bother you. And that's what I like about Leon, is when he has a bad game, it bothers him. And he can't hide it. You can see it bothers him. And that tells me he cares. And that's what I want from my star players. And Connor does the same thing. So I'm not ragging on Connor here. But Leon, it's very more visible with Leon. When he has a bad game or things are not going his way, it drives him absolutely insane, and he gets angry about it. And I have absolutely no problem with that. We are so gifted to have Leon Draisaitl as our second line center and our winger for the power play, top power play. We really are. It's a glutton of riches. It really is. And I can't say anything else about Leon. On his wings is up to some speculation. So it sounds to me like Isaiah Howard is going to be given the first opportunity on Leon's wing. Or maybe he'll be on the third line. It's like, if you have McDavid, Hyman, and RNH on the first line, on the second line, we got Mangiapane, so you don't want to have Mangiapane, Leon, and Isaiah Howard up there. Like that's two small wingers with Leon. So that's not a good mix, in my opinion. So actually, I'm going to change this up. Now that I've said that, I don't see Isaiah Howard getting into the top six right off the bat. He'll probably be on the third line. My chosen second line is Leon, Mangiapane, and Trent Fredricks, not Podkolzin. So we'll start with Mangiapane. He's scored 30 goals in his career. He was playing down the lineup in Washington. So saying, oh, well, he's only scored 20 in the past couple of years isn't really fair, because he was playing down the lineup and he wasn't really getting a lot of power play time. So again, if you're not given the opportunity, you can't hold the reduced production to account. It's like I say about Nurse, and I'll get to Nurse, but you hear a lot of people bitching about Nurse's offense. Well, Nurse was a 70-point defenseman when he was getting first power play time. But once that was gone, he barely gets out there on the second power play now. And the second power play barely gets out there. So, he doesn't get any of those extra points from the power play. So his production has fallen off. 5-on-5, he's still one of the top producing defensemen. But it's fallen off because he's not getting that type of play. Well, the same goes for Mangiapane in Washington. He wasn't getting the premier spots. In Edmonton, if he's playing with Leon, he's getting lots of ice time with a great elite player. And I don't think it's out of the realm that he goes back up to his 30 goals. I really don't. So we'll have to see, obviously, but I have no problem predicting 30 goals for Mangiapane if he clicks with Leon. That's the one thing, is you never know if they're going to click until they play together. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't click with your line mates, you don't click. So we're going to have to wait to see on Leon and Mangiapane, and if they click. If they do, I don't see a problem with 30 goals for the season being predicted. And, that's what he was brought in to do. So, yeah, it looks really promising to me. Now, the other one is I want Frederick up on the second line with Leon, not Podkolzin. I think Frederick has a higher ceiling. I think Frederick is a more gifted player. Now, I'm not ragging on Podkolzin, but I view Podkolzin as a third, fourth line player. I see Frederick as a second line player. So I want Trent Frederick up there. I don't know if he will be. I've heard horrible rumors that Savoy will be up there. And that's just insanity to me. And again, I'm not ragging on Savoy either. It's just like you can't have too many rookies. I think Isaiah Howard and Noah Phillips are the two rookies that should start the season. And then we decide off of their play. If they don't produce, or if they can't do it, then we send them back down to the AHL, or we trade them. Like in Noah Phillips' case, I think trading would be the move, because I still don't think he'll clear waivers if you put him on waivers. Whereas Isaiah Howard and Savoy can go down to the AHL if that's warranted. But you give Isaiah Howard and Noah Phillips a chance. So I want Trent Fredricks on the second line. That's what I want to see. And as I just said, he's known for his forecheck, which Leon needs on his line. You can't have Leon doing everything. You need somebody, like you got Mangiapane, who complements Leon on the scoring. So that gives us two legitimate scorers on that line. Now we need a grinder. McDavid's got Zach Hyman to do that job. Leon needs Trent Fredricks. That's how I look at it. So that's my second line, is Leon Draisaitl, Mangiapane, and Trent Fredricks. That's who I would start on second line. And then you adjust depending on how it plays out. Maybe they don't have any chemistry. Maybe one gets hurt. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen, but it's always a possibility. Or, maybe they're just not as good as they once were. So then you start fudging the lines. But until then, I think that should be our starting second line. As for our second pairing defense, that's obviously Darnell Nurse and whoever the hell they put with them. I honestly can't even predict who they're going to put with them. It's like they kept putting Stetcher with them, but I don't even think Stetcher should be our seventh defenseman, in my opinion. He shouldn't be our top six defenseman. Personally, I'd go with Wallman. He's physical, he's defensive, he's got a big shot. Wallman or Emberson would be my choice for a partner with Nurse. Now, the reason why is, as I was talking previous, Nurse in many aspects has been set up to fail. since he signed his big contract. Like, he was signed his big contract as elite two-way defenseman. He was putting up 70 points a season. He was on the first power play. You know, he was rushing, and his defensive partner, Ceci, was covering behind him, and it worked. And then he signed the contract, well, Ceci fell off a few steps, so that hurt. But Darnell stopped getting first power play unit. He's, you know, you heard Stauffer and other talking heads, oh, he's got to be 100% defensive. Well, that's never been his game, so why would you ask him to completely change his game now that you're paying him 9.25? What we need to do, in my opinion, is set Darnell up to succeed by giving him a complementary partner that covers, like when he rushes the puck, we need a strong defenseman to stay back. Well, Darnell's rushing, because Darnell rushing is part of the game that brought him to the dance and made him so successful. So, yeah, my personal opinion is Walman or Emberson. I'm going to go with Walman because he's got the big shot. So you would have Bouchard on the first pairing and Walman on the second pairing. That gives us two big shots. And yeah, then we go from there. Yeah, that would be my second pairing. I don't know how else to put it. I don't think Stetcher should be his pairing. I don't think any offensive-minded defenseman should be pairing with Nurse. Nurse is the offense of that pairing. Like Bouchard is the offense of the first pairing. You got Ekholm, who complements Bouchard when Ekholm's healthy, who stays back and covers up Bouchard's many defensive mistakes. Well, when Darnell's rushing the puck, we need that stay-at-home defenseman to cover for him in the back. It seems pretty straightforward to me, but, you know, I'm not the coach, and we're going to have to see what happens. So anyway, that's my video for this week. If you like the video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders. And I do appreciate anyone that does. Always feel free to leave a comment. Again, comment, what is your hot take for this season? Comment in the comment section. And, you know, if I get enough, I'm really struggling getting people to comment. But if I can get enough comments, I will use them as content for a future video. And I'll give you full credit to whoever made the comments. You know, it won't be I say, it will be you say and your comment. So yeah, please comment. The other reason I ask for people to comment is it really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. The more eyes I get on the videos, the more it helps me get monetized eventually, which is the way YouTube keeps changing the rules, probably a couple of years in the making, but you know, any little bit of help helps. So please comment. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.